as we all know, the chronic pain recovery journey is filled with lots of ups and downs. But ultimately, if you feel like your symptoms are headed on the downward trajectory overall, and you feel like you've tried everything and there's nothing else that you can do, and you're afraid that you will never be able to live a life without pain controlling your every move again, then you're going to want to hear this story today. So the reason I asked James to join me here on this call today is because he's experienced such an incredible transformation with his pain in a relatively short period of time. So if you are joining us live, please feel free to type any questions you have for James in the chat. And we'd love to hear from you and answer any questions you have for him or from either of us. So we're going to make sure we save some time at the end to answer your questions. Okay, so with that being said, let's bring up James. James is a current client of mine. He's working through my program materials, following all of the simple action steps in the program. And we're kind of in the middle of the program material right now. And so, James, would you mind introducing yourself and sharing maybe a little bit about who you are?
Sure. Thanks, Alyssa. Appreciate it. Yeah, I hope there aren't too many investment managers on the line because they're already in pain after looking at the markets. But I think we hopefully can move off of that and get into more physical pain and how it manifests in my life and how I've been addressing it. A little bit about my background. I've essentially been an athlete all my life, as far back as I can remember, whether it's playing sandlot football and baseball as a young kid, to a 5-sport athlete in middle school, a 3-sport athlete in high school, a 2-sport athlete, Division I college, and then a martial artist pretty much all my life after that, with a very short stint with a professional football team for about 5 weeks. I don't even know if that counts, but it certainly counts from a pain perspective. And just so everyone can understand, I played football, wrestled, I played baseball, I ran track. I've done a ton of sports. I really enjoy it. And I think part of the story that really resonated with me in Alyssa's program is my identity was stripped from me when pain just got to the point where I couldn't do what I loved, which is be physical, be an athlete, play a pickup game of basketball, do my martial arts training on a weekly, daily basis. That piece of the puzzle was super disappointing. So I would say fast forward, I grew up in the no pain, no gain 80s. So I thought that I should ignore pain, and my mentality was very simple. You'll have to kill me to get off the field. That's period. And that was on a daily basis. And martial arts reinforces that with their thought process. You don't stop. And it's almost a Monty Python type of skit where you get your arm lopped off and it's only a flesh wound, and you get your other arm lopped off, and I'm still in the fight when you're really not. But that mentality was pervasive. And I also had another piece of the puzzle that I didn't understand, which was pain and injury. I thought were directly related and only related. And small epiphanies, as I'm assuming that other folks are going through your program, Alyssa, small epiphanies there, major light bulb moments, call them, with that no pain, no gain no longer served me. One. And it's almost scientifically silly to think that pain and injury are directly related. There may be a relationship, but there are so many other things going on that I'm learning about now that it's been, just light bulb moments on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of my background.
Yes. So talking about that struggle of being an athlete your whole life, and now the contrast of that to where you are, or where you were, I should say, maybe a few months ago, and feeling that division between who you are, who you know you are, and who you've been your whole life, and like where you want to be, but you can't because of the pain. And I think, like you said, being an athlete our whole lives, we're taught to minimize pain, to, suck it up, push it down, don't talk about it, walk it off, and athletes definitely beat themselves up over the years, right? Like, I think
Sure.
that may have been even something that you said to me early on, like I beat my body up. And so I'm curious if you don't mind sharing a little bit about your actual pain, like what were your symptoms, like what's been going on and what was your diagnosis kind of coming into
Sure.
it?
Sure. So I've had several injuries throughout my career. I won't get into them. There's a long list, but ultimately, call it 15 or 20 minor and a couple of major injuries. But what happened is somewhere in my late 40s, they all kind of caught up with me, and as an athlete, I was compensating for those, and those compensation patterns essentially shut me down. There's only so much you can compensate around 7 or 8 or 10 major or minor injuries. All of a sudden, things start to stop you from doing things. And about 10 years ago, I had some mid back and low back pain. It was localized, and quite frankly, I played through it. I was sparring one day. I got a tweak in my back. I continued to spar. I could barely move, but I continued to fight. And again, that was that program in my brain of can't stop, keep going. On the train ride home, at the time I was living in the New York area, the train ride home, I couldn't sit down. I barely stand. And I was down on my back for 4 days, couldn't move. Severe nerve pain, and emotional trauma along the way, of course. I mean, what is this? Am I crippled? What's going to happen? But I thought, oh well, I've had tweaks before, I've had injuries before, I'll be fine in a week. In my late 40s, no, not so much, not so much. I was down for 6 months. Some days I could walk, some days I couldn't, and quite frankly, I was freaked out. In an emotional way, but ultimately, still thought Western medical community will fix me. I'm going to go to I'm going to go to back doctors. They're going to tell me this is what you're going to do, and then I'm going to fix it. I had knee surgery, went to a doctor, they fixed it. Elbow surgery, went to a doctor, fixed it, etc. I thought this was just the same thing. I'm an athlete. This is what I do. I run as hard as I can. I break through walls. I break myself. Somebody fixes me, and then I go right back to it. Not this time. I could not shake it for 2 years. I was still trying to train through it, but quite frankly, would run into roadblocks on a weekly, if not monthly basis. I went to several doctors, Western doctors. The Western doctors, I trusted them at that point in time. I very quickly lost trust in them when several of them told me I had a bad back. Now, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but at the end of the day, I consider myself an intellectual. When a medical professional says the word bad, it is no longer a medical diagnosis. I didn't know what to do, but somewhere in the back of my brain was bad back, bad back, bad back, bad back. And that was echoing. So I spent the next 3 or 4 or 5 years trying to heal up with shots and injections, all Western medicine. Then I started moving into a little more of a thought process around, well, let's go a little more Eastern medicine side. I know martial arts, whether it's Reiki or acupuncture or what have you. Let's try that. I tried chiropractic adjustments. Nothing really worked until I got some ozone treatment, several injections in the area of my back. It cleared up enough so I can continue to get back to what I was doing, but not to the level I was before. I had 50% of my athleticism. I couldn't really run, so I stopped running. I stopped sparring. My strength training was fine, but it was limited. I couldn't really do Olympic lifting or anything ballistic. Couldn't do any plyometric training. So I cut out most of the fun things that I was doing to just try and keep the wheels on the bus. But I thought I had a bad back, and then next move was going to just be crippled. So that was 10 years ago, and fast forward to about 18 months ago, I had another flare up that put me down. I was doing gymnastic strength training, and I just had a flare up, and then I just tried to train through it again, and boom, it got really bad. And then I backed off, got some injections that felt better, went back into it. No surprise, happened again. And I said, okay, between desperation and stupidity, I thought I need another direction, something whatever I'm working on isn't working.
Mhm.
And I either have to live my life as a cripple, quote unquote, as I thought, or I have to change the way I'm doing things.
Yeah.
And that's when I started to do some really deep research about alternative ways of looking at the world.
Mhm.
In particular, being more of an intellectual about pain specifically. And the revelations were amazing. And that's how I found you, Alyssa, is going along those paths, trying to find someone who can guide me through these things, because I've always played team sports. I liked having teammates.
Mhm.
And I was looking for a teammate. And when I interviewed a handful of people, you resonated in terms of someone who wanted, not only knew what they were doing, but also could be a teammate. And that was important to me to have a partner in this.
Yeah.
So
That's a good
that's been
point.
my 10-year journey in extreme dysfunction and pain.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I think that is something that the healthcare system as a whole is missing, because you are looked at as the patient. You are not part of the team. You are the object of their, I don't know, they're the project. You're not part of the team. And everything is being done to you, or you're trying to get fixed by them, or they're trying to fix you. And they're not inviting you into that process of like, here's what you can do. And if they do, they're going to tell you some kind of BS, like um, bed rest, or drink more water, or don't do anything, you have a bad back, or um, stress less. That's a good one. Like, just don't stress. That'll make you feel better.
Sure,
um
just say no.
yeah, you just feel better that way.
Doesn't work.
So take me to the point where like you said that you had to kind of cut back on the physical activities. Where were you at a few months ago? Because like where you're at right now is different from where you were before you
Yeah.
started the program. But were you doing any kind of physical activity? Were you able to work out? Were you like, where were you at physically?
Yeah. So I was kind of, for someone who's tried multiple protocols in Olympic lifting, powerlifting, plyometrics over my lifetime, gymnastics, strength training, Pilates, yoga. I run through the gamut of things, kin stretch. I was down to a couple of protocols, a few body weight movements, maybe push-ups, pull-ups, some squats, a little bit of kin stretch, which was helpful, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
It was helpful doing PNF and end range stretching. That was helpful, but not something that I would consider overly athletic. It was keeping some level of fitness in my body, but not athleticism. So
Mm-hmm.
I was basically down to a few tools in my toolbox, when before I had 20 or 30 tools and can pull them in, pull them out. I was down to one or two on the strength and fitness side. And from a martial arts perspective, I mean, I was down to doing light drills. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
I
light
remember
drills.
the first time that we actually spoke, you were telling me your goals, and you were saying like, I want to be able to hike every day. I want to be able to do martial arts every day.
Mhm.
And I was like, wait, is that something normal for you? Like, I mean, these realistic goals? And they are for you. Um, Not everybody has those kinds of goals, so good for you. But they were big goals, and at that point, it was very. I think it's important to make that point, is that at that point, you were not doing anything close to that level of like where you wanted to be, where you felt like you would be happy with that amount of physical activity. So
Yep.
yeah, I remember you kind of saying like, I'm not doing anything right now, like simple stretching, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I as soon as the flare up happened again, for the multiple, I don't remember how many times now, in around November, when shortly, I think just shortly before, maybe it was October, shortly before I met you, and ultimately, I think that I changed my mentality from, all right, I'm not going to look at it, and it's somewhat of an Eastern philosophy, but I'm not going to look at life as something, what can't I do? I'm going to look at, oh, what can I do?
Mhm.
So I was just doing what I could do until about November, when I had a flare up again, and I just shut it all down
It was
again. I
nothing.
did
Mhm.
nothing. I was barely walking, quite frankly. I mean, it was just pretty horrifying. And I didn't know again how long it would last. I mean, that's the worst part. But I do know that one of the mental shifts that I made was, instead of breaking myself and putting myself into the hands of a medical, I decided that I was going to take the perspective of, I'm the chief physician in my own body. It's me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to hire my team, and I'm not going to rely on any one person. But as soon as they become part of my team, then they're part of my team. Then that's
Yeah.
it. We're a team. We're going to work. We're going to figure. But I'm going to take the lead. Period. So there are people I had part of my team in November that, I don't need anymore.
Mhm.
And I had chiropractic adjustments to put some ribs back into place that popped out. That's been the cascading effect that I've found out recently, by the way, which is, ribs pop out my back on the spinal attachments. That's actually the problem I have. It's
Mhm.
not a bad back. I have a rib problem. Nobody knew it. Nobody diagnosed it. I had to figure it out with my chiropractor, yourself, and a few other people. But once I figured that out, now when it happens, I need my chiro to put the ribs back in. I need to follow your protocols in order to calm all the nervous system down. And then I need to slowly get back and show my brain that movements are safe again.
Right.
But before, it was like, okay, I'm injured, I'm down, I get fixed. Okay, I'm back up to 100%. That's it. It's like this all or nothing movements.
Mhm.
It's completely changed.
Yeah.
So there's two interrelated things going on there, but ultimately, I think you can pull out the perspective that your program in particular changed the mindset, but my mindset was already ready to go. So it was
Mhm.
that mix right there that just fit perfectly.
Yeah. So I'm sure if anyone who's watching is probably curious about what is in this program. Like when you say like I had to calm my nervous system down, what does that involve? Like what is in the program that got you to be able to do that, to have that mindset shift in your own words? Because like I could probably explain it in my own words, but hearing it from you, I think would be slightly different.
Sure. Yeah, for me, it was almost simplistic. Is I needed to take an intellectual approach to pain, which I never did. I took for lack of a more technical term, a meathead approach to pain. It was
Mhm.
almost silly that you can't keep banging your head against the wall and just patch up the bleeding parts and then go back to banging your head against the wall. That's kind of the way I was approaching the world. I was trained that way, but in my late 40s, early 50s, it took a little while to unlearn that. And then once I unlearned it though, and I emptied my cup, so to speak, I was able to pour back in a more intellectual approach to pain.
Mhm.
So for me, it was several thought processes, which is, all right, what is pain? I don't know.
Mhm.
I thought it was an injury that was, just shot up to my brain and said, okay, you have an injury. You need to stop
Yeah. I
moving
think
around this injured part.
that is what so many people struggle with is like we all think we know the mechanisms of how pain works because you feel it there. I can feel it, I can point to it, I know it's there, but it's not actually there. And that is what's so complicated about that, is that like understanding and that shift, like you're saying, of like, so what is really going on? How is my nervous system communicating that message back and forth? What else could be going on besides maybe the rib? The rib could be initiating that process, but then what else is happening, right?
Yeah, and once I started down that intellectual line, it just led to further and further understanding, further and further research, and all of the stuff is in your program. So I didn't have to dig around for it, which was amazing, because I would just be like, okay, well, I guess my nerves are there. I thought pain, injury, and up go to the brain. That's not the case. Now, I kind of sort of understand that from martial arts and sports, which is the military's version of how you take in information and how it inputs. It's called the OODA loop, right? But I did not apply that to pain. There's just no education out there. And I had 10, 15 years of people telling me that, oh, your pain is just, you just have a bad back. That's why you have pain. Okay. Okay. I guess that's why I have pain. Wrong answer.
Yeah.
So as soon as I made that shift to I'm in the lead, I need to take an intellectual approach to this to understand it better. All of a sudden, almost light bulb like in its switching on, I started to understand that pain is a function of the brain's interpretation of unsafe movements. Well, why are they that? So now I'm thinking, oh, okay, so now I can think about it more thoughtfully, which is, why am I moving in pain? What am I doing to cause an unsafe thought process? Is it because I don't have mind-body connection? Is it because I don't have this, or I'm doing that in a way that my body is responding and telling my brain that you can't do this anymore? But just, one of the things that I talked to you, Alyssa, about that I thought was critical early on was I had another MRI just for intellectual approaches about 3 months in, about 3 weeks in, 3 weeks into your program. My spine's fine. I don't have a bad back. So I started doing the mantra in the back of my head, and it sounds silly, but it works. My spine is fine. And all of a sudden, all the nervous thought processes where, geez, the next move you make, you're going to be crippled. I don't have those anymore.
Yeah.
So that combination of just taking control of my thought process and taking and adding teammates and partners, as opposed to putting myself in somebody else's hands and just saying, please fix me. That proactive approach is what changed things for me. And then learning along the way, what is a nerve? Oh, I never knew that. I just thought they were just hanging out there. So what is it? I didn't know. So now taking that a step further in all those thought processes, I'm starting to learn more and more and more on a granular level, which is has an opposite cascading effect to my pain.
Yeah.
And even when I get a little tweak in my back, I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. My spine is fine.
Would you say, when for years, like, the only thing you've been told as an explanation for what your pain is a bad back, do you think that that and combined with the unknown of, like, I don't really believe that, and I don't really know if something is wrong with my back or what this pain is where it's coming from, do you think that the unknown and that phrase, like, I have a bad back, contributed to the amplification of pain for you in terms of, like, what goes on in the brain?
In terms of the brain response, absolutely. I didn't understand it till I started the program, but ultimately, yes. The unknown is the worst, because I would go through an injury and say, okay, I'm fixed. I'll rehab it and I'm back. And now my brain can calm down and say, go. Just go. I didn't have that green light to go when I had an unknown.
Yeah.
And I knew I had something wrong, but the fact that it was, well, I'll just call it misdiagnosed as a bad back. The fact that it was misdiagnosed left me in a nebulous kind of limbo state where I didn't know what I could do. And I don't know where to, if you don't know what direction you can go in, then the answer is no direction.
Yeah.
Which, I used to have, probably a exponentially high level of discipline, but I used to get up in the morning and do an hour of meditation and yoga and movement work, and then do martial arts training and for an hour or so, and then do maybe 30 minutes of strength training at the end of the day, or mobility training. That used to be what I did. And 10 years ago, that all stopped. And I came back pieces here or there, but that all stopped. So if you want to tie it into the brain connection, that is the biggest piece of the puzzle, and the unknown was the worst.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't put my program in place. I couldn't put a protocol in place to what can I do? I don't know what I can do. I know what I can't do, but I don't know what I can do. So now I'm stuck.
Yeah. So, quick question. How long ago did you start the program? Do you remember?
I think it was November.
With me?
6 months?
Mm-mm.
I think so. When? December?
It was January.
Oh, it was January? Okay.
Yeah, it was January.
Well, I did.
It may feel that
I
long.
did start. Yeah, it does feel a little longer. It does feel a little longer.
We started in January. I definitely looked it up just to double check. So I was like, I know we're going to talk about this.
Good for you. In the
So
time of COVID, does time matter anymore?
no, it all is the same. What is time?
Exactly.
So from January from when we started in January, actually the first time we spoke on the phone was January 4th. I think you started the program a couple of weeks later. But from January, and if you're watching, it's now March, right? Or March, yeah, it is May. Wow,
May.
time. It is May.
At least I got that part right. I know it's May.
Yeah. What? So what has changed for you since that starting point physically? Where are you at now? What are your pain levels? What are your activity levels? Where are you at mentally, physically, all of that?
So let's start with where I'm at just physically and work off of that. Let's see, between November and February, I was still doing 0. And there were days in December and early January that I do recall that I couldn't walk. And I was sitting down on a heating pad for hours on end, laying down, excuse me, a heating pad down on end. Between January and let's call it mid-March, between doing your program and working on some slow Tai Chi-like movements, which I had never done in my life, which were inspired by your thought processes. I started
Which you kind of came to on your own, right?
I did. I mean, I have to move. I can't not move. It is almost it's delay. Not moving is like death to me.
Yeah.
So
Like I got to start with something.
Something, anything, please make me move. So once I could walk and I got over that level of emotional trauma, because it is emotional trauma, then and that took about a month. Once I could get back there, then I started doing Tai Chi movements, and that I started with movements that I've been doing for years, martial arts movements, but just doing them super slow. Now I don't train like that. I train like a speed athlete, like a power athlete. And even though, in my old age, I'm not necessarily that anymore, but I still trained that way previously. But ultimately, I had to break it down and retrain my brain, which is this movement's safe. Well, how do you do that? Well, you slow it down and you limit your range of motion. And if that works for a couple of days, then you increase your one, not both, one of them. Maybe increase your range of motion, but keep it slow. Increase it a little more, increase it a little more. That actually took my brain, coupled with the thought processes and the learning that I was doing in your program, that took me to, within a month, full mobility, granted still at a very slow Tai Chi movement perspective. But my brain started to say, that's not so bad. I don't think this is a problem. So from there, I started partner training and solo training again, very slow, but more with bigger martial art movements. Again, I tried to take movements that I was very comfortable with, that I've been doing for 20, 30 years. I didn't want to introduce anything new. I wanted old stuff that my brain, we know how to do this. So I didn't have to think about that while I was thinking about my mobility and pain. So I broke it down to very core movements that I've been doing for years. I would say about, let's say, a month ago, give or take, I started doing partner training and increased that. What I didn't do was when I increased to go to partner training and start moving more and start walking more, I didn't introduce strength training immediately again, or intense stretching again, or kin stretch, or I didn't do any of that. I decided that I was going to take things one at a time, make my brain feel like it was comfortable at this level, tick it up a little bit, move it up a little bit, make it comfortable there, move it up a little bit, move it up a little bit. But it took a lot of discipline and prioritization, because ultimately I want to do all the stuff I used to do. But ultimately, going by your program with the no pain, no gain, switching it, push to it, not through it. My spine is fine. Having these mantras in my head, if I can use that word, it helped me stay disciplined instead of, normally I would have gone from, 0 broken to, 100%. Well, let's not do that. Let's go slow a little bit. Okay, that works. And let's build. So I started building.
Yep.
And over the past 2 weeks, I'm now full partner training. I'm moving, not full power, but I'm moving full speed. So I'm moving full speed with contact. Now, granted, I'm not hitting bags and pads and doing all sorts of ballistic work, but I am moving very, very well now. So now is the time of like, okay, now I have another transition. How do I attack that transition? And when do I attack that transition? Do I wait a little bit longer? Do I move forward? So those are the things I think of now, as opposed to, okay, I'm fine, let's go 100%.
Yeah. You have now like a framework, a system, an approach of like how to progress yourself. That's not going to push you so far as to have a flare up and set you back, weeks, months at a time to where you were in November. You can now, and you've been steadily, since we've started working together, been building up your activity tolerance to now being able to, I think you just said to me last week, was it that you were working out or doing your martial arts 3 days a week? And the next thing is to somehow figure out how to get hiking back into that, so you can do that every day as well, because I know that's your goal. So I think that's wonderful. And I also remembered you with when we first started, you'd said stuff like, I know what I can do. I know what I can't do. I know I can't squat, because squatting is always cause flare-ups, and it's particularly the deep squats. And it was so remarkable to me to be on a call with you and you're like, I'm sitting on the floor right now. I couldn't get here if I didn't have to go through that deep squat. And I think that mentally and physically, the squatting was a huge barrier. You saw that as like, okay, maybe I can get back to martial arts, but I don't know about squatting. And the next thing I knew, you were on the floor, like showing me that you can do it.
Yeah, and again, I followed the same protocol and framework, which was, all right, I'm going to hold a 3/4 squat, 2 or 3 days. I'm just going to do it. And I literally did it as I was doing my other meditation work. In between, I would take and sounds silly, but it worked. I would take a sip of coffee, but instead of taking a sip standing up or sitting down, I would squat 3/4 of the way down, grab my coffee, take a sip, put it there, and that was good. And the next week, I think a week I did that, and then I went to parallel. And then I went to, a little further down, further. And about, I would say it started to feel better quicker once that brain connection said, yeah, this is not a big problem here. And I would say about 10 or 12 days ago, I just went into a, full squat, deep down, butt to ankles. And I held it there for about 3 or 4 seconds. Then I slowly came up. I was like, my mantras for the entire time, like, spine is fine, spine is fine, spine is fine. Because it was usually on the way up.
You're anticipating, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm anticipating the problem and I'm just mentally going through it. You're fine. And then the next day, go up a little smoother. And now I basically still in a controlled manner, but I'm dropping all the way down. I'm sitting there, maybe check my phone, take a sip of coffee, and then slowly come back up. No problem. Move back to the next thing. So I've moved off of that high alert perspective, and this is a problem, to, nah, this isn't a problem.
Yeah, love that. And I think what's important to note here as well, because like what we're talking about, like if you want like to put a technical term on it, is basically pacing. Like we gave you a framework for how to pace in a way that is still going to let you live your life, because a lot of people are a little fearful of like, whoa, pacing, I've tried that, it means I can't live my life. And it's totally been super effective for you to get it, like to not only continue to live your life, but to get back to being active in such a short amount of time, relatively speaking, because you had pain. I know most of the bad pain's been 10 years, but you've had it for 20 years. And to be able to go from that length of time to from January to May, be able to get to where you are right now, that's a relatively short period of time, and it's very impressive. But what I will say too is, as I mentioned at the beginning of this talk, is that you are only still not even like halfway into the program. We still haven't even started our brain-based drills. So we've been doing a lot of like the bottom up stuff. We flipped the program organization around for you a little bit too, because you wanted to get back to that so much faster. It really worked really well for you. But we kind of did things out of order, and kind of started with more of the physical components, which we normally don't do. But we haven't even gotten into some of the top-down brain-based drills that are things that are going to help with retraining the structure and organization and activity within the brain. And at this point, I'm almost like, does he even need them? Because he's doing so well. But we're going to give them to you anyways as well, right? But just fascinating stuff still to see that transformation. So yes, I have a question in the chat, if you don't mind. I'm not sure, Jess, if you're still on, but I'm gonna because if you are, we may need an elaboration on the question. But she says, do you feel like your improvements have eliminated any issues, or just know how to get the pain back down or get it back down? That was the question.
And the answer is it's eliminated the nebulous, I don't know what I can do or can't do process. That is eliminated. That the brain connection to my body is eliminated. The education or lack thereof on what pain really is and how it works, that ignorance, so to speak, is eliminated. Now I'm working with other bodywork people that are helping me PT wise and what have you with my movement processes. I'm also addressing some massive scar tissue issues that I have with ozone and stem cell injections and various other things. So it is a team approach, and there's definitely movement patterns that I'm going to have to relearn as as my body starts to heal, and I'm paying attention to those things as opposed to, so what? My big toe is all busted up and I can't walk properly over it, but I'll just walk around it. No more. No more. That thought process is gone. So what I've eliminated is the mind telling the body what to do, as opposed to the mind and the body working together to give me information so I can actually function.
Yeah.
That's eliminated.
Yeah.
But there's always pieces of the puzzle that, depending on how your dysfunction and pain comes up, there's always pieces of the puzzle that are going to be hands-on required. And you're gonna need to find your own people for that. I happen to be in Santa Monica, so it's pretty good here. But other than that, yeah, there's lots of options here. But it's getting better. I noticed in New York City, it's getting better with integrative doctors and holistic thought processes and people who are more open-minded to things. So I know that things are getting better from a research perspective, and also programs like this, they're invaluable. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to get in touch with you if I was just sitting here with a phone in my hand, right? It's just impossible. So, but in terms of answering the question directly, what the program really did was eliminate the mind from telling the body what to do. Now a team approach.
Yeah. And when I hear that question, like, do you feel like your improvements have eliminated any issues? And I don't know if that it all implies, like, has it eliminated the structural problems in the back? No, right? Like, I mean, because they weren't the problem to begin with, except for the rib thing that you're explaining, because you didn't have a bad back that you were led to believe for years that wasn't really the issue, or maybe it was part of the issue, but it was a smaller piece than it was in reality, that there were other things going on there in the nervous system that were contributing to pain, that were making it worse. So yes, I think that's also an important point, because until you can see that that pain problem, like you were saying, is more complex than we originally are like taught to believe, that it's, you know, it's your back, it's your joint, it's your muscle, it's whatever, it's your ligament that needs to heal. Maybe it has healed, but maybe there's something else that's changed in the nervous system that's contributing to that problem as well. So Jess also mentioned, she says, I totally understand. I understood, and I wish I could get a team as well. And I think what you said there about getting a team is really important, because it goes back to taking accountability and being proactive in your own healthcare. Because if you sit around and wait for the medical system, the medical industry to fix you, you're gonna keep having the same problem. And everybody's team may look a little bit different, but it is all about multidisciplinary stuff. You know, like I'm over here as James is like nervous system coach, right? And then you have a somebody to help you do the body work piece, and you have somebody to help you kind of do some of the, I'm sure, of the physical retraining component, you know. So like there's different members of that team, and for whoever is listening, it may involve a naturopath, it may involve someone who can provide you with really good specific nutrition advice for you, because everybody's nutrition situation is slightly different and there's no one size fits all diet. I know I just spoke at the gluten-free conference or summit, but like gluten-free may be effective for one person, but it's not for everybody. So there, like you said, a team, that's where that like word holistic comes in. It is a holistic approach. You are the main athlete on that team, like you're the MVP. Everyone is just there to support you and give you the right tools and information and systems or whatever that is to really make that effective for you. So really good point there.
Well, for me also, I couldn't move on to the body work and other things until I understood the pain issue first, intellectually, because I tried a bunch of things and it didn't work. Plus my nutrition is dialed in 100%. So it wasn't a nutritional issue. It wasn't a fitness issue. It was clearly something different. So until I was able to kind of clear some of the fog with talking to you and understanding some of the pain, just intellectually, until I got that, I was like, oh, okay, well, my chiro can fix this. But after that, probably overkill for to go twice a week and just put my ribs back in and crack my bones, so to speak. It was overkill for me. So what I had to do was say, okay, now that I understand the pain piece and I could take that and separate it almost, now what's really wrong with my body? Well, I got this, I have that, I have that, I have this. Well, how do I address each one of those pieces now? Now I'm able to compartmentalize these things and start to look for people who are good for each one of these pieces. For instance, my ribs pop out. Granted, the ligaments are probably a little bit torn, if not lax. So maybe some injections for the ligaments, maybe a visceral manipulator or a Rolfing person to get into my ribs to start them to move properly again, because let's face it, they weren't popping out for no reason. They're popping out because other things, they're hypermobile because other things were not mobile enough. So what wasn't mobile? I don't know, but I need to find someone to figure that out, because I have a lot of physical trauma in my body and I need to eliminate that in order to move better. And I can't do any of that unless I'm out of pain. At least get the pain from where an 8 to 10 down to a 4 to 6, which I was able to do pretty quickly in the program.
Yeah. What is your average pain level in the last 2 weeks?
Sitting or standing or lying down with doing nothing, I have 0 pain. So I'm on 0. Moving around with relative speed but fluidity, 0. Moving ballistically, which I tried to start to do last week, I definitely got a little bit of a tweak in there. But guess what? I got a little bit of a tweak. I stopped immediately. I was like, okay, my rib doesn't feel that good. Do I need my chiro? Okay, I'll go back to your flare-up tear sheet. look through it. I'm like, okay, I got this. Spine is fine. Do I need to put my rib back in a day later? No, I don't think I do. I just think I irritated the tissue. Okay, what do I do today? Well, I'm not going to be no pain, no gain guy today. I think I'm going to take the day off. I think I'm going to relax. I think I'm going to go for a walk, see how I feel. This was a Friday. By Sunday afternoon, I was 100%. I trained Monday morning, no problem.
Yeah.
That would have been a disaster, a cascading disaster, just 3 or 4, 5 months ago.
Yeah. 4 or 5 months ago, sitting stationary, what was average pain level?
Sitting, forget it. I barely could sit. Could lie down. Walking was painful. And in an extreme flare up, which I had in November, early December, I was at a 10. Pretty much, I could barely breathe when the nerve pain was horrific in my lower and mid back. So I was at a 10 when I walked. When I was lying down, I was at a 4 or 5. Sitting, I could not sit. 0, so can't sit.
Yeah.
So now I've been sitting this entire time. Granted, I don't walk, but ultimately, I do know that there's certain positions and certain things that I do when I am in those positions that cause me to be in a non-advantageous movement position. So if I'm all hunched over, it causes my back to round, which causes those ribs to be slightly exposed. And now I'm in a position where if I don't put them back, so to speak, and get it kind of back in line, I have a physical impediment. So I do know those things right now, but I don't look at them as, well, I'm broken.
Yeah.
And I can't
And the
fix
actual
this.
experience of pain is not at the moment happening.
No, I just trained martial arts for an hour and a half with my trainer. We went, I would say about 60, 65%. Good speed, no power. You know, we were doing partner training. We were moving around. It's not like I was doing any heavy wrestling or kickboxing, but I definitely was moving pretty hard.
I feel like your
No problem.
65% is probably my like 90%. Just say that right now. So
I've been accused of that before, Elizabeth.
yeah. But that's okay. That's okay. That just shows you how much of a better athlete you are than I am right now, at least in my life. We're playing volleyball though. Watch out.
Yeah, at 5'9", I'm not necessarily the best volleyball player in the room.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. You don't need to play volleyball. Well, I have one more question for you, if you don't mind. I think for a lot of people with starting a program like this, there's so many unknowns. There's this fear that it won't work for me because I've tried everything else. And I'm afraid that if I do this again, I'm going to look like a failure. I'm going to look like kind of an idiot for making this investment, for spending all this money, and then it fail again when I've been hurt so many times in the past. People don't want to do that. What would you say to someone who's having those kinds of thoughts? Will this be worth it? Will it work for me? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I had the same thoughts, but ultimately, the journey is a process of elimination, and I call it unfortunate because the Western medical community, in my personal opinion, is no help. So you're on your own. So finding that path is fraught with failure. Thankfully, between being an athlete and being in business, I kind of know that your path is a decision tree. The decision tree is a probability adjusted outcome. There's always a probability you will fail or you'll be wrong, but you will learn in the process, grow from that, and pivot. You don't stick with things that are wrong. You just pivot. You just, I always, I tend to be in either boards or C-suites a lot. And I train a lot of people, CEOs included. And I always tell them, you only fail if you don't learn. You don't fail, you just pay tuition otherwise.
Yeah.
So we all have to pay a lot of tuition because, without getting into politics, the government and the Western medical community, it's a sick care system. They don't care about you. until you're sick. And when you're sick, they'll try and fix you. If they can't, they're going to toss you away because they can't make any money off of you. They don't care. So you have to care about yourself. You have to learn and grow. You have to make your own decision tree, follow the path. And if it's good for you, keep going. And then add nodes to that path as you go, learn and grow. And I mean, I failed multiple times in 10 years. If I had this program and the people that I have today, 10 years ago, I wouldn't be here today. I'd be fixed, quite frankly. That's how I feel. So, you know, I went through the same thought process, but ultimately I came to the conclusion that I have to be healthy or I can't live. And it wasn't really out of complete desperation, but pretty close. Close. And I don't mind failing, quite frankly, because I don't look at it that way.
That's
How many athletes have failed along the way? I mean, even the best of the best of the best have had bad days and have failed, but they learned and grew and moved forward and, you know, kind of didn't do that again, so to speak.
Yeah. And I look at it like when you say like, you can't fail if you've learned something, even if that is like, this wasn't for me, this wasn't the problem. But I think, like you said, the way that I look at it, like if you don't learn anything, that's a failure. I don't think that is possible with this program. There's no way, unless you just don't look at the videos or you don't like pay any attention, you just don't turn on your computer and like log in and, you know, do the work, you won't learn anything. And then that failure is on you. But like, I don't think it's possible to not learn anything from this program. And if it's nothing but, wow, now I have a deeper understanding of how my body works, how my, you know, everything is communicating, why my muscles are always feeling this way. Like that understanding can give so much clarity. And I think that's for you, like kind of what's been this huge like transformation so far, because you've been able to make that mindset shift, I guess, if you want to call it that. You've learned that information and it has had a significant impact before even doing like the brain-based drills that were supposed to be the most transformative piece of the puzzle, but it's worked for you. So I don't, like I said, go ahead.
Well, it's a process of due diligence, right? It's, you know, there's plenty of people out there that'll tell you they can help you. If you don't know how to be helped, then you have to have a shotgun approach to it. You just have to. So you just start talking to people, asking lots of questions. I talked to a lot of professional athletes. I did a lot of discussing with friends and family who've had, you know, pain issues, and, you know, who did you talk to? What did you come to? I went to see another 3 doctors in January and February at Western doctors, all of which said the same thing. I can't see any problem with your spine. It could be this, it could be that, but you probably just have some bad back issues. Huh?
Yeah.
But every one of those, you know, every time I went to see a doctor, it's $500. Literally just to get a, you know, to kiss the ring, so to speak, I had to pay $500. Every one of these orthopedic surgeons were $500 to see. I saw 3 of them again. So I completely blew $1,500, but guess what? I came out of there with my spine is fine. So that $1,500 was gold. It was well worth it. It was a bargain.
Yeah,
to
I love
know
that
that
mindset.
my spine was fine. It was a bargain.
I love that.
I can complain all I want about how that shouldn't have been, but at the end of the day, you know, it is what it is. So I just paid tuition, learned, and moved forward. And I won't see doctors again unless my spine literally blows out the back of my head. I'm not seeing another doctor.
Yeah. Well, I want to start kind of wrapping things up. There is a question about surgery in the chat, and I would love to answer that question for you, Jess, because it is a really important question, but I feel like I'm going to have to do that on another live to be respectful of James's time. So I will certainly answer that question later on. I will message you or something. We'll definitely touch base, and I may just answer it in a live because that might be the easiest way for me to do that. But so as we kind of wrap up, I just kind of want to say thank you to James for joining me today. And it means a lot to me and everyone in this community for you to take so much time out of your busy schedule today and to inspire others who are in a similar position to where you were just a few months ago. And so before we kind of close things up, is there anything you would want to add or say before we sign off?
Just thank you. You know, it's been great working with you, and I continue to learn and grow, and it's been wonderful. And I'm glad you're part of my team, and love having you as a partner here. And ultimately, I just wish everybody on the line best of luck. It's not an easy path, but you just got to keep hammering away, because the alternative is untenable. So good luck to everyone. Hope you got a little bit of a nugget of help from what I had to say, and best of luck to everyone.
Yeah. So thank you again, and especially for your willingness and to be open and vulnerable and sharing your story and where you were and where you've come and all of that. And it's really helpful for people to see what is possible. Shanda says, thank you, Shanda, for watching and hanging out with us. And so if you are watching and you are interested in learning at all about the program that gave James the tools and the knowledge and the system that he was missing from his team, so to speak, that he needed to go from doing nothing, really, having no structure, no framework, and no way to get out of pain, to feeling like an athlete again and acting like an athlete again. So if you're ready to take those next steps and actually get back to a quality life, just direct message me or comment below and just let me know. Say, I'm ready, and I will personally reach out to you, and I will give you some more information about the program, because you may feel a little hopeless. You may feel like there's nothing else that you can do. But the problem is that you just haven't been given the right knowledge, the right drills, the right strategies, the right system to help you get to the root cause of your pain problem, or part of your pain problem. And the medical system, the healthcare industry, just doesn't have what you need. They don't have the ability to support you. No one is going to get you there but yourself, because there's no quick fix. But with that right system and the right support, your life could be completely different in just a few months, just like it has been for James. So I hope you found this story inspiring. Thank you for watching and taking the time out of your busy days to spend this time with us. And that is all for today. We will see you next time.